I believe that more people should grow their own food. Why is that, you may ask? Well, unless you've been living under a rock your entire life, you probably know that our planet isn't doing so well. Climate change and ecological collapse being near the top of the list. For this video, I'd like to focus on the issue of pollinator decline and how it is affected by corporate food production. However, one thing I'd like to say, which is not solely related to pollinators, is that according to the CGIAR, 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions are from agriculture. That's something to keep in mind. Pollinators of all kinds are being faced with multiple and interacting causes of death. These include birds, butterflies, and especially bees. There are over 20,000 bee species worldwide, and honeybees alone are responsible for more than 1/3 of global food production. Just in the United States, they contribute $14 billion a year in crop production services. But after World War II, bees slowly began to decline. In fact, as of 2007, there were about 2 million managed honeybee hives in the US when compared to the 4.5 million present in 1945. Just 10 years ago, beekeepers in the US began to lose 30% of their hives each year. This phenomenon is known as colony collapse disorder. So what's causing all this bee trouble? One such issue is habitat loss. After World War II, industrial farms were able to grow bigger and bigger monocultural farms. Monocultures are fields which only consist of a single crop, mostly corn and soybeans in the United States. Planting in monocultures allows for expedited mass production with lower monetary expense, but they are rarely if ever found in nature. The result is a vast landscape which is absent of weeds and flowers that bees need to survive. Not only is this a negative for bees, but planting the same crop in a field year after year eventually renders soil infertile. In October of last year, 7 species of yellow-faced bees were placed on the endangered species list by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They are native to Hawaii and are the first bee species in the world to be protected on the Endangered Species Act. These 7 bee species are responsible for the pollination of many native Hawaiian plants. Experts are concerned that if the bees disappear, many native plant species might as well. Native yellow-faced bees are primarily under threat from habitat loss and invasive plant and animal species. Because we began to grow in vast monocultures, there was less and less for insects to feed on except for our crops, so it became a necessity to use more and more pesticides. Unfortunately, pesticides don't discriminate between pests and pollinators. One type of pesticide that is a problem for bees are neonicotinoids. These pesticides are systemic, meaning that the toxin is taken into the plant itself. When bees feed on the flowers of treated plants, they either die outright or become so confused that they can't find their way back to the hive. In addition to the harmful effects on bees as well as other pollinators, studies not conducted by the pesticide industry have linked neonicotinoids to blood cell damage and cancer in human blood samples. And in addition to all that, bees have other natural threats to deal with. Varroa destructor is a mite which attaches itself to a bee's body and drains its blood. They are also a main cause of virus circulation among bee colonies. Red on this map indicates where Varroa destructor is present and where it is not. In Hawaii specifically, the Varroa mite has infested all main islands except for Maui. With the exception of Australia, perhaps Greenland, and a few countries in Africa, Maui is one of the last remaining places in the world devoid of Varroa mite infestation. Maui beekeeper Mark Damon reported that there are an estimated 1 million wild honeybee hives left on Maui. I also interviewed local beekeeper Ken Dar on issues relating to honeybees on Maui as well as on the mainland. He stated that it might only be a matter of time before Varroa destructor makes it to Maui from the mainland or one of the neighboring islands. As you can see, the situation is dire. I believe that one solution is to take the growing of our food into our own hands, in a way that is kind to the environment and is pollinator friendly. I wanted to create a project that demonstrates the aspects of both diversified, biodynamic, and eco-friendly farming and the current monoculture system used by many industrial farms. So I created a 4x4 foot square plot of each farming style as an example, to dispel thoughts like, I can't garden because I don't have time, or I don't have the space or the money. I wanted to also demonstrate that by using a diversified and eco-friendly method, it is possible to grow a lot of food in a small amount of space with little money and little time. For my diversified garden, I picked a spot with nice sun exposure and loosened 6 inches of soil. Note that you don't need to even spend time digging this small area. It will increase the depth that your roots will have, but you can still have a flourishing garden without it. After that was finished, I got a large piece of scrap wood and cut it into 4 separate 1 foot by 4 foot sections with the skill saw, and then nailed them together to form a box for my raised bed. Now that my box was made, I took a trip to Ace Hardware and bought 3 bags of topsoil, 1 bag of compost, and some chicken wire to deter wild turkeys and pigs in my area. Each bag of soil and the bag of compost were about $6 each. The chicken wire cost about $8 total, and isn't a necessity for everyone. I then went into our cow pasture and collected 1 5-gallon bucket of manure to give the soil an extra boost of nutrients. It's It's possible to get soil and compost for free, of course, with a little labor, but being pressed for time, I opted not to. I then placed my box and filled it with all the contents before mixing it with a pitchfork, though I could have done it with a shovel too. Then I watered my new raised bed and left it all to settle overnight. Because I was lazy, it took me a few days to get back to it, but then I set about planting what I wanted in my garden. I planted some from seed, but also transplanted from our other gardens. You can buy seeds at almost any department store. For planting and everything else, I referenced a book called Square Foot Gardening, A New Way to Garden in Less Space with Less Work by Mel Bartholomew. As the book implies, I planted in sections of 1-foot squares. This allowed me to maximize the amount of growing space in my garden. According to Square Foot Gardening, if done correctly, you can fit an average of 130 plants in a 4x4-foot block for a typical salad garden. That's enough for one square to provide enough salads for a single person the entire growing season. This book also provides plenty of information on how to space properly for specific crops. A full head of cabbage, for example, might need 1 square, while certain squashes might need 4. Square Foot Gardening recommends growing vining crops vertically to save extra space and increase yield. Because I built a raised bed, my plants can dig their roots deeper and have a lot more water and nutrients. I also water less because the box keeps it contained. Another benefit to the raised bed is that it's more difficult for weeds to crawl or blow into the garden. I took this a step further by adding a layer of mulch on top of the soil, which in addition to keeping weeds out helps the soil retain more moisture. Something else that I did was plant herbs and flowers among my vegetables to attract bees and deter pests. Bees feed on the flowers, and when my veggies go to seed, they will be right there to pollinate them. Most herbs have strong aromas, which many pests avoid. This means I do not have to spray pesticides on my food and risk harming any bees. Once everything was planted, I made sure to water the bed to help the plant's roots adjust to the new environment. I also referenced Square Foot Gardening for all the information on how to water individual crops. As you can see, by having a diverse array of plants in my garden without the use of pesticides, I can support a healthy ecosystem and produce a lot of food. All in all, it cost me $32 to set up the raised bed. But again, you can get nearly everything you need for free if you keep nails and a hammer, even more if you can find good soil. Regardless, the garden should more than pay for itself by providing plenty of food for years into the future. As long as you have 16 square feet of space, you can have a garden like this anywhere, whether you live in the city or the country. For my traditional row garden example, I decided to plant tatsoi. I know that this representation isn't the most accurate one, as my rows are far smaller than that of industrial farms, and of course I'm not growing on a commercial level. But I believe it paints the picture. When my tatsoi is growing well, it's all tatsoi. It does flower, but only once every season, meaning that for the rest of the entire growing season, it's useless to bees. Not to mention the extra amount of watering required compared to the raised bed being on the open ground. It also required more digging in order to be able to plant. Now I have shown 2 ways to garden. One is more effective for larger yield with less space, promotes biodiversity and is low cost, while the other is also low cost, but is more effective for large-scale production, and doesn't support as much biodiversity. But don't think that the 2 styles I have shown here are all there is. There is container gardening, open diversified gardening, vertical gardening, window box gardening, and so much more. I encourage everyone to get out there and find what suits their income and situation best. I asked Ken Dar if there was anything that the average Joe could do to help bees, besides becoming a gardener.
Plant heather, sage, plant stuff around the garden that the bees love to eat.
And if I haven't persuaded you to become a small-time gardener, then at least consider planting bee-friendly flowers somewhere in your area. This is a very simple, easy, and direct way to help the bees, and it barely infringes upon one's lifestyle. You need a bloom that lasts all growing season, meaning year-round in Hawaii. If everyone planted at least 1 packet of flowers, you would have approximately 70,000 extra square feet of flowers. A big difference for the bees. Another simple way to help is by voting with your fork and buying organic food. I still encourage you to take the extra step and garden too, even if it's only a 4x4 foot plot. Things may look grim, but if we all do our part and work together, we can make the future a little brighter.